All right, man, peace. You know, brothers, in sports sometimes there are certain athletes who during their eras were transcendent, but they were not able to catch on from a pop culture perspective. So if you were not able to watch them perform, they kind of get lost in the annals of time. Like in basketball, you have players like Bernard King, Mark Aguirre. In football, you have athletes like James Lofton or Thurman Thomas. Thurman Thomas is one of the great all-around running backs of all time, but many people don't know who he is today, even though he retired in like 1999 or 2000. James Lofton, had he played on the San Francisco 49ers instead of Jerry Rice, people will be calling him the greatest wide receiver ever. This dude has like 12,000, 13,000 receiving yards, and he did not have the benefit of playing with a Joe Montana or a Steve Young like the great Jerry Rice did. And that brings us to Mr. Pernell Whitaker, one of the greatest all-time pure boxers in the history of the sport. But many people don't know how great he was because, unfortunately, he fought in an era from the mid to late 80s into the early to mid 90s that was dominated by names like Sugar Leonard, Mike Tyson, later on Roy Jones, Oscar De La Hoya. And at one time, from the late 80s into the early 90s, even mid 90s, he was considered the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, even while fighting during the tenure of Mike Tyson and Roy Jones. As a matter of fact, Roy was not officially considered the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world until Sweet Pea lost the decision to De La Hoya in 1996. That's when he officially received the title of best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. Roy Jones did. Reason why I bring this up is because, as most of you cats who follow boxing know, Pernell Sweet Pea Whitaker passed away. He was hit by a car a couple of months ago. I'm just getting around to the video now. But once again, Sweet Pea was a master of the sweet science. He's someone who everyone cannot watch box, very similar to a Floyd Mayweather. Even though I don't consider Sweet Pea a boxer in the line or in the realm of a Floyd Mayweather, I consider Pernell more like a left-handed version of Willie Pep, maybe with a bit more power and better athleticism. But he's certainly more in that realm. Whitaker's style of defense was more like Pep. He wanted to make you miss. Floyd's defense is block, sometimes make you miss, great head movement, waist movement, etc. Now, if you were fortunate enough to watch Pernell in many of his bigger fights, you know that he tended to get robbed because his style was kind of controversial. He didn't throw as much as maybe he should have in pivotal bouts, especially against De La Hoya, where one has to wonder, was the cocaine or the drugs taking effect with his decision-making during the bout? Because by 1996, which is when he fought De La Hoya, Oscar was already the media darling. So Pernell had to know that in order to maintain his title, he had to be much more aggressive against Oscar. Do I think that he outboxed Oscar? Yes, but I can understand why Oscar got the decision. Do I consider that fight a flat-out robbery? No. Would I have given the decision to Pernell? Sure, but once again, do I understand why they gave it to Oscar? Yes, I do. Oscar was the cash cow. He fought in a much more aggressive style. He was also Mexican, so he could appeal to the Latino or Hispanic fan base, so on and so forth. They just saw dollar signs when they saw Oscar. But officially, Pernell's record is 40 wins, 4 losses, and 1 draw. And one can certainly make the case that he really should only have 2 losses on his record, particularly those 2 losses at the very end of his career to Tito Trinidad and one other fighter, because most of those other losses and draws are easily disputable. Most people believe that he actually beat Jose Luis Ramirez in his first attempt to capture the lightweight title. I believe it was back in '88. Many people believe that he beat De La Hoya in '96. And we all know about the draw against Julio Cesar Chavez, I believe it was in 1993, which in my view was a far worse robbery. That draw was a worse robbery than the De La Hoya loss in '96. So anyway, they're going to talk about Pernell, and of course I'm going to chime in.
TV Sports, Evan here with Van Lathan. What up? Michael J. Babcock is on vacation in New Jersey, if you want to call it beautiful New Jersey. Yes. Look, this is a tough story, but it happened. We broke the story earlier this morning. It was a crappy way to start the day, but Pernell Whitaker, one of the greatest boxers of the modern era, really of his generation, maybe the best.
Extraordinary fighter. Very much akin to a Manny Pacquiao, being a little man who could conquer bigger opponents. I would love to have seen a Pernell Whitaker versus Manny Pacquiao bout. Who do I think would have won? Not quite sure. It would have been great to see Pernell try to deal with Manny's power as well as his activity. It would have been great to see Manny try to deal with Pernell's footwork, hand speed, and counter punching. So I'm not quite sure who I would pick in that mythical matchup. Many people believe that Pernell was a better pure boxer than Floyd. I would take Floyd over Pernell very, very slightly. I just think that Floyd was more responsible in the ring, and he fought in a style that was more conducive to beating various types of opponents, even than Pernell. Now, I will say this. Many people say that their favorite fight of Pernell's was against Chavez, or maybe even this fight right here, the De La Hoya fight. My favorite fight of Pernell Whitaker, hands down, without a doubt, is the rematch against Buddy McGirt. I believe they fought in Norfolk, Virginia. In the first fight, they fought at Madison Square Garden. Pernell was able to take Buddy McGirt's welterweight title, and it was kind of a pedestrian performance. Pernell was just outboxing him. Buddy claimed that he had an injured shoulder. They had a rematch in Norfolk, Virginia, and Pernell fought him toe-to-toe. And I always love to see great pure boxers have those couple of fights where they decide, I'm going to fight you toe-to-toe just to show you that I can beat you any way that I want to beat you. And we've seen that throughout history, where great pure boxers decide that they're going to bite down on their mouthpiece, stand in the middle of the ring. They're still going to be responsible, but they're going to show you that they could thump if they have to. Floyd has had many fights like that. People claim that he runs. People claim that Pernell ran. But they're just fighting in an intelligent way. And unfortunately for Pernell, the drugs got to him. I don't think the punches got to him. I think the drugs got to him. Maybe it was a combination of the two. But that's probably my favorite fight of Pernell's, as well as Pernell's fight against Roger Mayweather. Very exciting fight. Great fight.
Of any era, passed away last night. He was killed in Virginia. He was walking across the street.
There goes Joe Cortez, a.k.a. Joe Cortez Mayweather. Yo, Joe Cortez is the biggest Floyd Mayweather fan I've ever seen. If you ever watched Joe Cortez referee a Floyd Mayweather fight, it looks like he's refereeing for his nephew or his son or some shit. Joe Cortez telling Ricky Hatton, back up, Ricky. Don't punch Floyd.
10 o'clock p.m. when he was hit by a car and he died on the street. He was only 55 years old. And what many people involved in the investigation are telling us was it appears to be just a real accident.
Allegedly. You never know what many of these cases are about when it comes to formerly famous people or entertainers being killed by strange means. Once you become a part of that entertainment coven, a professional athlete who's able to achieve a great deal of fame, you do make your life susceptible to sacrifice. So who knows? Who knows? I'm not going to hypothesize about that. I don't have enough empirical data or factoids. I'm just going to keep it about the boxing angle when it comes to Pernell. But that was very strange. I'll leave it at that.
Like anybody did anything intentionally wrong. It was just an accident, hit by a car, dead at 55 years old. We're going to get into details in a second, but first, Van, you are one of the biggest boxing fans and most knowledgeable boxing fans I know. Tell us about what Pernell Whitaker meant to the sport.
It's interesting. He is both a guy who is one of the greatest of all time by anybody's measure.
No doubt about it. And it's also very interesting how things come full circle. De La Hoya was able to cement himself and validate his career by beating Pernell Sweet Pea Whitaker, and Floyd Mayweather was able to become the cash cow, almost getting some type of revenge for Pernell by defeating De La Hoya in 2007.
Also, like, underrated at the same time, Pernell Whitaker.
Very much so, because as I stated at the start of this video, Pernell was not able to catch on from a pop culture aspect like a Mike Tyson was.
Had a reign. Everybody talks about Floyd Mayweather now or Roy Jones Jr. He had a reign as the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. He was the best fighter in the world for a span of 5 or 6 years. A defensive wizard. People still study his timing, his ability to move around his opponents and get it.
And one of the main components of Pernell's craft that exudes through the TV screen when you watch him fight is how easy he made it look. He was far faster than he looks in the fight because he was so smooth and he was so relaxed.
Hats off. He was an absolute technician in there. Fighter of the year in 1989. Think about it. 1989, a year where you have guys out there like Mike Tyson, all kinds of
Mike Tyson in his prime.
But the fighter of the year that year was actually Pernell Whitaker. He was a fantastic, sensational boxer.
So we spoke with Roy Jones Jr., who was actually in Russia when we called him up, but he was like, look, this is Pernell Whitaker means so much to me and so much to the sport that he stopped what he was doing in Russia.
Pernell also a gold medal winner in the 1984 Olympics in LA.
on the phone with us and shot a video with us talking about how important of a figure Pernell Whitaker is. So here is Roy Jones Jr. talking about Pernell. Can you explain to people what he meant to you?
Let me tell you something. When they said the last of them vegan, that's what Pernell Whitaker really stood for. That's what he really is. Pernell Whitaker didn't care who it was, what it was. If they were supposed to be good, he won. He didn't care who he fight. He didn't care where he was fighting at. He didn't really care what weight he was fighting at. Just tell him where he needed to be, what weight he needed to be at, and that's where he was.
Once again, Pernell Whitaker at 5'5.5" was able to win a title in the 154-pound weight class. And he was not a fighter who was considered to be extremely powerful with his punches like a Manny Pacquiao.
Whitaker was the truth when it comes to boxing. You know what I mean? He was truly a pound great because he didn't duck or dodge nothing. Pernell Whitaker was what you call a real dog. He didn't give a care about nothing. He took it. If you thought you could beat Pernell, come see me. That's what real boxing was about.
Why Roy Jones always sound like he's trying to publicize his own fight whenever he's being interviewed? Like, Roy, are we talking about Pernell or are we talking about your next fight?
Look, you heard me? So we lost a great one there, another great one.
Yeah, I mean, Pernell Whitaker would fight anyone, and it's true. He fought Julio Cesar Chavez. Yeah. He fought Oscar De La Hoya. He fought some of the all-time greats.
Let's put this in context. Julio Cesar Chavez was undefeated. Yeah, undefeated record on the line against Pernell Whitaker. Pernell Whitaker beat Chavez. He beat him.
Beat him relatively easy, too. Early on, of course, there were some moments because Chavez had great power. And you could see that Whitaker was feeling his power. But from around rounds 4 to 5 and onward, just a total boxing masterclass.
That fight. I watched the fight. As a kid with my dad, he was going crazy. He got a draw. He then fought Oscar De La Hoya. Love Oscar. Judges scored that a loss for Pernell. He won that fight. I'm telling you right now that not only was Pernell Whitaker one of the greats of all time by any measure, but actually should have been greater if he'd been treated fairly while he was on this earth. A real, true boxing legend.
So, speaking of boxing legends, the reason Pernell Whitaker was in Virginia Beach last night was because he was invited along with some of the greatest living athletes, on earth right now to participate in this massive autograph signing. They have these things all over the...
Floyd Mayweather, prior to his bout against Miguel Cotto, recited some sparring sessions that he had with Pernell Whitaker, who took him under his wing and also was building him up for Floyd's 1996 Olympic performance in Atlanta, Georgia. We all know Floyd ended up with the bronze. There's some debate or dispute over whether or not Floyd was robbed. I'm not going to go there. But Pernell was at Floyd's Olympic boxing performances in Atlanta. So it's always interesting how that occurs. And also, by the way, in Floyd's professional debut, Sugar Ray Leonard was at the fight for Floyd's professional debut. So they knew what Floyd was going to become. And I say all that because, as we all know, if you're in a certain field, you know who's on the come up. Whether it's in basketball, baseball, football, boxing, you know greatness when you see it because you have a little bit of that in you. But once again, just pay attention to this right here. Floyd's about 5'7.5", maybe 5'8" on a good day. And Pernell is barely coming up to his ear. So just go to show you how great a fighter Pernell Whitaker was, that he was able to max out at 154 pounds and win a title there. Floyd Mayweather was able to win a title at 154. And he himself was considered a small man to be fighting in that weight class.
Huge stars were there, including Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather took this photo with Pernell Whitaker on Saturday, the day before Pernell was killed, and he took this photo and he posted this today, and he said, quote, "R.I.P. champ, one of the best fighters to ever do it. This photo was taken 7/13/19. So respect coming from Floyd Mayweather. Magic Johnson has weighed in. Michael Vick, who is from the same hometown, weighed in, said he's a hometown legend. People really care about Pernell Whitaker. He's going to be missed.
A lot of famous athletes from that area.
Investigation into his death is ongoing right now, but here's what we know so far. The driver who hit him was tested for alcohol and drugs, and we're told from law enforcement that that doesn't appear to be a factor at all. Speed wasn't a factor either. The driver's cooperating with police, and as one law enforcement source told us, quote, "It appears just to be a horrible accident." So,
very interesting. Pernell Whitaker dies in a very strange car accident at 55 years old.
55 years old, way too young for Sweet Pea.
R.I.P.
But anyway, that's basically it on that. Pernell Whitaker was certainly an all-time great. Peace.